Hello everyone and welcome to a new video. Today I wanted to do the mid-year book freakout tag. I think that's what it's called. I will link the original creator down below, and I will also keep linking some resources that you can just access to support the Black Lives Matter movement. I think that kind of the hype of it all has died a little bit down, so please let us not forget about the movement and how important it is. So yeah, I will link both of those down below, but let's get started because I really just want to make this video as quick as possible. The first prompt is best book that you have read so far, and I think I always cheat in these kind of videos because I feel like there's just so many wonderful books, so I'm gonna list 3. The first one is Sula by Toni Morrison. I read this because I have been wanting to read Toni Morrison for a while, and I didn't know where to start, and I watched a Young Green video, and he said that this was one of his favorite books ever. So I started with this one. It's pretty short. It's amazing. It's just, I'm still thinking about this book. It follows the lives of 2 women in this, it's a small town called The Bottom, and it's just so many things. I don't even know how to explain it. I think that the best way to go into this book is not knowing much, so I will not talk about it or give too many details because I feel like if I do, I will spoil it. But do read it. It's just wonderful, and I cannot wait to just continue to read more by this author. The second book is also no surprise, Emma by Jane Austen. Again, I love Jane Austen. So when I read this book, I thought that I wasn't gonna like it. I thought that Emma seemed like a very sort of selfish and just dislikable character, and she is, but this book is so funny and just, it feels so good. It's such a good-hearted, feel-good story, and I loved it. The book follows Emma Woodhouse. She is a very rich lady. She lives with her father, and one of the things that she's very certain about is that she does not want to marry. And I think it's very interesting how Jane Austen explored this kind of privilege of her to be able to say such a thing, because she is so rich and she does come from a very high class sort of society, that she can and has a choice to say that she doesn't want to marry, unlike so many other characters that we see throughout Jane Austen's many books, in which they kind of have to marry if they want to live a good, stable life economically. So yeah, I loved it. Funny, hilarious. I think that this is one of Jane Austen's funniest books. This was the last Jane Austen novel that I have read from her 6 main novels. I have finally read them all, and this one is definitely the funniest. And last but certainly not least, The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. This book just spoke to me in so many levels. I think that being Latina and just seeing yourself in the page in so many different ways, it felt so good, and it made me, I love this book. This follows a girl named Xiomara. She is 15. Her mother is very religious. She's from Dominican Republic, and she immigrated to the United States in hopes of finding a better life. So Xiomara was born in the United States, but she basically grew up with a lot of Dominican Republic culture, and we see how as she grows up she begins to question not only the religious beliefs of her mother, but also just so many other things that her mother has made her believe. And I think that what I really loved about the story is that the mother isn't villainized, even though there are some very horrible things and very intense fights in this book. You get to see where her mother is coming from, and her mother has her own story. It's just great. It's great. And it's written in verse, which is I was hesitant about, and I will talk about that a little bit later, but it works so well and it's very fast-paced. I read this in one sitting. A wonderful book, and I think that it deserves every single award that it has. The second prompt is best sequel that you have read so far, and surprisingly I have not read many sequels at all, I think. So I'm gonna mention the one that I did finish this year and that I really enjoyed, which was A Clash of Kings by George R. Martin. And yeah, I think that I have been trying to read this book for like a year and it's been on my currently reading list for a really long time, and when I jumped back into it, I was just immersed in this world. And I forgot how funny and hilarious this book is, especially if you are reading it with the audiobook. I picked up the audiobook and I was following along with the physical copy, and I really enjoyed it, and it was hilarious and it made me laugh so hard. The narrator really gives each character their own voice, even if they just say one line, and it's hilarious. It's hilarious and I loved it. So I'm currently reading the next installment, which is A Storm of Swords, and I'm having a blast. So yeah, definitely one of the best sequels that I've read this year. The next prompt is a new release that you haven't gotten around to reading yet, and for me that is Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. It's the last, I think it's the most recent book by her, and it's on its way. I am really excited to read it, and it follows the lives of these two young women who have the same father, and their father tragically passes away in an accident on an airplane that was heading back to the Dominican Republic. And Elizabeth Acevedo explained in many interviews that I've seen by her that this book was inspired by real events of a crash that occurred, basically a plane crash, when it was heading to the Dominican Republic, and most of the people who were flying, they were Dominican, of Dominican descent or Dominican. And it was a very hard thing for the community, not only in the island but also in the mainland, in the United States, and the Dominican Republic community there. So yeah, I'm really excited to read it. It's also written in verse, and I am just excited because I really enjoyed The Poet X. So yeah, probably will have a review about that one soon. Then the next prompt is most anticipated release for the second half of the year, and for me that is Blood and Honey by Shelby Mahurin. I read the first book, which was Serpent and Dove. I read it this year. No, wait, I read it last year and I really enjoyed it, and it was one of my favorite books of last year. And I think this is just comfort food for me. It was hilarious, it was very romantic, and had that fantasy setting, and we also have just really badass characters. So yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I think that one of the things that I also enjoyed was that this also kind of has a sort of I guess deep message behind it, especially when it comes to religion, and how people have this really intense relationship with religion and the things that it can make them do. So I really enjoyed that aspect of this book as well. So I really do recommend it, and I am excited for the second book, which is coming out this year. The next prompt is biggest disappointment, and for me that definitely has to be Crescent City, House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas. Here's the thing, I don't think that I had very high expectations about this book, and there was a part of me that really enjoyed it, but there was a part of me that was really disappointed because I felt like I was reading the same thing. I feel like this is a remake of Throne of Glass in modern times. For me, the main character felt to me really like Aelin, and the main love interest felt really like Rowan to me. So yeah, I didn't really enjoy it. There were so many other things. I think that the length didn't help either. I felt like the characters were just going around and things weren't really progressing, or at least they were, but it didn't feel like it. I think this book, if you don't know, it follows a murder mystery, and I don't really enjoy murder mysteries. But apart from that, I felt like even as the characters were discovering things, it didn't lead them anywhere. And yeah, there was so many things that I didn't really enjoy about this book. I think that I wrote a review on Goodreads because I read this book I think in March. But yeah, didn't really connect with it, and I think that this is my least favorite Sarah J Maas book to date. So yeah. Then is Biggest Surprise, and again I have to say The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. I think I'm gonna be really quick about this. I didn't expect to like this book because of the format. I don't really like, it's not that I don't like poetry, I just didn't think that it was a good way to tell a novel, and yet it was. And I also am not the biggest fan of slam poetry. I feel like sometimes it's, I try not to say this without, it's weird because I feel like sometimes poets just put normal sentences and say it's poetry, and yet it worked on this book. So yeah, Biggest Surprise. I think that my opinions have changed on slam poetry, so yeah. Favorite new author, again, Elizabeth Acevedo. She wrote not only this, but With the Fire on High, which is a book that I also really enjoyed. So yeah, favorite new author, definitely. Newest fictional crush, for me that has to be Mr. Knightley from Emma. And if not Emma herself, I just love Emma, which I think kind of goes to show how much I love this book. I'm also gonna put her in favorite new character. Yes, Emma, definitely. Again, she is such a complex character, if not the most complex character throughout Jane Austen novels. So yeah, definitely Emma. Then we have a book that made you cry. For me, that was Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. I will not say why it made me cry because I think that goes into very deep spoilers, but if you do know about the book and you have seen the movie, I think you may know why. It's not only that, the movie just touches me so much, and every time I see it, I have seen it 3-4 times to this day, and each time I sob throughout the entire movie. It's no other movie does that to me. I sob throughout the entire thing. So yeah, definitely that one made me cry. Now, a book that made you happy. For me, that is the Bromance Book Club. That book was just it felt like a breath of fresh air that I needed. I remember that I picked it up when I was in a reading slump, and this book is basically about this baseball player who his wife wants to divorce him, and he basically tries to get her back through this book club. He basically his baseball team has a book club of romance novels, and they study them, and through that they kind of learn how to treat their wives more romantically and stuff like that. Now that I think about it, the premise sounds kind of sketchy, but I promise it's a really fun book and it's hilarious, and it made me happy, and I cannot wait to read the sequel. So yeah, loved it. Then we have the most beautiful book that you have bought or received, and for me that is The Silence of the Girls by Pat Barker. I mean, this cover is beautiful. I'm currently reading this. I'm about 50 pages in, and I am feeling lukewarm about it, but the cover I cannot deny. It's beautiful. And I think that that is one of the things that just stood up to me. So yeah, definitely The Silence of the Girls. And then finally, books that you have yet to read. I'm going to just basically mention them really quickly because they are a lot. I have an entire stack here, so we're gonna go really quickly. This is Test of the D'Urbervilles by Thomas Hardy. Then we have Villette by Charlotte Bronte. This is The Fellowship of the Ring and the Two Towers by J.R.R. Tolkien. This is The Water Dancer by Ta-Nehisi Coates. The Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead. The Secret History by Donna Tartt. The Republic by Plato. Far from the Madding Crowd by Thomas Hardy. And The Tenant of Woodville Hall by Anne Bronte. So yeah, I have a big stack of books that I need to read. Let me just show them. Oh, yeah, all of these. I have a lot more coming up, and I'm going to be making another book haul of the books that I have recently acquired. And yeah, this video is already too long, so thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Please let me know what are your favorite books of the year so far, and which ones have been disappointing. Let's share the disappointment. So yeah, let me know, and I will see you guys with the next video.